Sounds good.
So I just Fox Mulder.
Yes.
So it looks like you want some general, just essentially better obedience, and then there's a little bit of leash reactivity.
Yeah.
Okay. So go ahead and fill me in on Fox here.
Yeah, well, he's right here. He is 3-year-old Whippet. I would say that he's like a pretty good, like in general, like companion dog. Like I trained myself for the first 3 years. I really have no complaints other than like I'm scared to like let him like off leash because he's a Whippet, so he has a really high prey drive.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd like to be more confident in that. The only big problems that we have right now are sometimes he'll have like a little bit of leash reactivity. I did a training course with like Tucker pups, and that was like, oh, it was like okay. They use like positive and like treats, which was fine. But then there were just some dogs that like if he just didn't like at all. And then we started using it's not a prong collar, but it's from Herm Sprenger. It's like a neck tech like collar. Here, I'll show you. 1 second. Oh, you think you're gonna go outside? No, I'm just showing. It's
Okay.
yeah. And that basically like fixed most of the issues. So now we can walk by pretty much like any dog. He'll like still have like I could see him like get a little tense sometimes, but he won't freak out like he did. So that's good. And then like the big problem I have is he loves eating everything on the ground. Like he'll always be licking the floors. He's better in our home because like he's used to it. But if we go somewhere else, he'll be sniffing around, licking the floors. The other week he got into like hydrangeas, which like made him throw up for like a couple hours, which was like terrible. So that's like my biggest thing right now is him being a trash eater.
Okay. Anything else?
Oh, he does police dogs a little bit. I used to work at a daycare. And he would come there with me, and he was like pretty well behaved, but he would think that he had to help me control the other dogs. So then he started to have like those issues where if they were getting out of line, he would kind of try to step in and correct them. And now he kind of does that with some of his like, we only like hang out with like 3 other dogs, like 2 other Whippets and like my family's dog, and he'll play with them, but then if he thinks he's getting like a little bit rowdy, or if they're getting rowdy, like not even playing, he'll like try to correct them.
Okay. Anything else?
That's basically it.
Okay. I'm assuming you did research on us before booking a consultation, how we train and everything.
Yeah.
Okay. So all the stuff sounds pretty standard. Nothing out of the ordinary. I use remote collar.
Yeah.
That's my primary tool of choice. Prong collars are great, but then when you take the leash off, you're just limited, right, to on leash control. So remote collar right away gets you off leash reliability. And are you familiar with the tool of Ecollar, like the technology and everything?
Yeah. Yeah.
So where it's like a muscle contraction, you're using on humans. Yeah. Okay. So what I would do here with Fox, which I like the name, by the way.
Thanks.
Is switching hit the tool to the prong collar, of course, resolve the big chunk of your reactivity and everything, which is good.
Yeah.
And so the remote collar would wrap up if there were to be any kind of residual reactivity. You should wrap that all up, and then get you reliable recall where your dog's not running away, even if there is prey. We can override that. And then the foraging is also not an issue too. Okay, so Ecollar, in my opinion, is the best tool. On and off leash control, very user friendly, for the average dog owner. So it doesn't require you to learn like a ton of skills. You'll have to learn some stuff, but you don't have to learn as much as like a dog trainer would.
Yeah.
That's one of the most common complaints that I get from other clients that have trained with other trainers, where they're like, well, I was terrible with timing. My correction wasn't good. Like I would always feed late, like all these like things. And remote collar kind of just, we don't need to worry about any of that stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. So the first thing I would do, which is the first thing I do with almost all my cases, is always teach to heel.
Yeah.
Walking on a leash. Heel is such an important command in regards to reactivity. And leash pulling tends to be like one of the most common things that people want to fix. But also when it comes to the dog, when a dog feels an e-collar, they tend to want to move.
Mm-hmm.
So if you put an e-collar on Fox and you started tapping the button, you would see him move and most likely move away.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because he's like, I don't know what this is, and he's like, I'm going to run away from it. Okay, so obviously we don't want the dog to run away from the collar. We want the dog to associate when he feels the collar to actually, if anything, to come to you.
Okay. Yeah.
So when a dog feels the collar, they want to move. So we use the heel command, which is a moving behavior, so that the dog, so that we can put the dog under pressure. He can express the need to move, but instead of moving away from us, we're teaching him to move to us.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we use that to shape everything. So the heel command is a very powerful tool whenever we're dealing with behavior or obedience type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's also something that you do with your dog multiple times a day, right? Most people walk their dog about 3 times a day.
Yeah.
It gives you 3 instances throughout the day to practice, so that you're getting your kind of you're getting used to it, getting used to using it, changing the levels and everything. Mulder's getting used to it as I'm gonna call Mulder like the show now.
Yeah.
He's getting used to being exposed to it repeatedly.
Mm-hmm.
Typically, when people try to do e-collar by themselves, they tend to only use it to like punish things.
Yeah.
Okay. Whereas we use it for everything from correcting behaviors to teaching behaviors. Okay. And because we use it so much, the dog gets over it and kind of accepts it as like, okay, this is like another thing in life.
Mm-hmm.
It's communication. There's a way to turn it on and there's a way to turn it off. And we want to make sure that Mulder understands or has a concept of how all these things work. Okay.
Yeah.
So heel typically takes 2 classes.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll have your first class, which is super simple. I coach you through it. I don't touch Mulder. You do all the training yourself. I'm present with you,
Okay.
but I'm coaching you through it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you learn everything from ground zero.
Mm-hmm.
Then you practice for your week. For the week, you come back class 2. We do some review. How's it going? Did you have any issues? We kind of work through that. And then I give you the second half of heel. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have your homework. And by class 3, I doubt we're going to have any issues with the reactivity stuff because you said most of it's already been addressed as is. But I think that's going to be an easy fix. And we would jump right into the recall by class 3.
Okay.
So recall, the reason why I try to jump into it as soon as possible is because it takes the longest to teach.
Yeah.
Okay. All the other commands, so there's 6 commands: sit, stay, down, come, place, heel. These 6 commands are meant to be functional. Okay. They're meant for you to take Mulder and have a life with him and have control and be able to do more things with him. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I think people have kind of now view obedience as tricks.
Yeah.
Right? For do this, get a treat type of stuff. But obedience is meant to be functional. It's meant for you to go to the restaurant. Mulder's laying down. He's not moving. You're able to walk to and from anywhere you want to go on the leash with no reactivity, no pulling, none of that stuff. Go in and out stores. Go to the park, fence or no fence. Get over here, Mulder. He comes to you, whether there's a squirrel or a rabbit or whatever. Like this stuff is meant to work. Okay.
Yeah.
So heel is the fastest because we walk our dog multiple times a day, every day. Recall takes the longest because you got to go somewhere.
Yeah.
You got to go to the park. You got to find that prey to allow Mulder to be Mulder, be a dog, use that prey drive, call him from time to time to come to you. But then you have to be mindful because for some dogs, if you practice too much, you'll dissuade them from wanting to leave you.
Yeah.
So they get paranoid and want to stick to you. So if you go out to the park to practice, but nothing's going on, like it's an empty park, well then it's kind of like, all right, well we'll do what we can do, but we're practicing in an empty park today, so it's not the same as like a busy park
Yeah.
with people and squirrels and rabbits and dogs and strollers and rollerbladers, right?
Yeah.
Very different. So that's why recall takes the longest, because your intention could be to practice every week, but then if the weather is super rainy or it's muggy or it's too cold, there's a lot of factors there. So
Yeah.
recall takes 2 classes. There's 2 parts to it as well. And then you just go out and practice. Okay. Yeah. So you have you know how to get the recall to be off leash reliable. It's just going to take you longer than the length of the program.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
And when people ask me, they're like, how do I know when my dog is ready for complete off leash, recall, no matter where I'm at? And I go, you'll know.
Yeah.
Okay. Owners are really good about being aware of what their dog is capable of. And I've even had dogs that were great and I could see that they were off leash reliable, but the owner wasn't ready. Like the owner was either too anxious or too paranoid, or maybe their dog had behavioral issues. So they're kind of concerned, like, well, I don't want this to happen. So I tell them, no problem. I was like, just keep practicing until you're ready. Okay. Like I had a lady that did 9 classes with me. She had a very reactive pity. She used to have to climb down like 20 something flights of stairs because she had to avoid the elevator. Okay. And we got the reactivity done within a couple of weeks, which was really good. And then at the end of her program, her dog was great. No reactivity. Dog was awesome. And then in my mind, I was like, I feel like this dog could be social and your dog is off leash reliable. Okay. Because she lives right across the street from the park. So it was very convenient for her. She was in Lincoln Park. So she lived right by the lakefront.
Oh, yeah.
So very easy. Lots of stuff there to work with. So then she's like, no, Jesse, I would never let this dog off leash, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, that's fine. I was like, it's your dog. I was like, I'm just letting you know that I can see your dog, where your dog is at, and he's there. And I saw her a year later. And she came up to me and she had her dog off leash. I was doing pack walks in Lakeview for my clients. And she came with her dog off leash. So I was surprised because I was like, you said you would never have your dog off leash. Yeah. And she's like, hey, Jesse, guess what? He has friends now. And I walk him off leash all the time, but it took her longer than the 9 weeks with me to kind of get her confidence, because she had to see successes, she had to see failures, but then also be able to kind of recover from that and all that stuff. And to get her to the point where she's like, oh, okay, like my dog is capable of a lot more because of everything that I've done. Okay. So every case is different. Your case sounds pretty straightforward. It sounds like just off leash reliable obedience stuff, right? And the only command that has to be off leash reliable is recall. Okay, everything else is superficial. So all 6 commands, sit, stay down, come, place, heel, can be taught to off leash levels. Okay, whether or not you need all 6 commands and whether or not you need them to be all off leash reliable is a totally different thing, right? But the one command of recall has to be off leash reliable no matter what, otherwise it's pointless.
Yeah.
Okay, so we start with 2 with the heel. By 3rd class, we're jumping into recall. It's 2 on recall. And I'd probably put you in my 6th class range, depending on the level of control that you want. So I have 3, 6, 9, and 12-week programs. Think of the 3-week as I want to walk my dog. So like leash reactivity, leash pulling type stuff. 6-week is walk my dog, go to the park. So like heel and recall. 9-week is walk my dog, go to the park, go to restaurants. So we also teach stationary control, like place command. And the 12-week program is I teach sit, stay down, come, place, heel. And we spend, we try to build everything to off leash levels.
Okay.
Okay. Now, if you're doing more advanced stuff, if you're doing more advanced stuff, that requires you to put in more work. Okay. Because in order to get your stuff to be off leash reliable, you have to practice outside. You have to practice at the park, right? Otherwise, if you're doing just like kind of the standard family pet, walk my dog and recall my dog, you essentially just practice as you go by your life with Mulder. Yeah. The stay, sit, down, and place commands they're easy to practice, which I think kind of makes them take longer because people tend to put those things off. Yeah. Like, oh, like I can practice place command whenever I want. So I can just not worry about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then like a month goes by, and then they're like, oh, I want to take my dog to a restaurant, but they've not practiced place
Yeah.
command. It's not going to be as easy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So those 4 commands can be practiced within the home.
Okay.
And typically when I teach something, I just tell people, once we've taught the skill to the dog, just apply it or use it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, like, so you're finding places to use the sit, you're finding places to use the down, or finding, times of the day to use the place command or the stay. Once we teach it, we tend to do little training sessions,
Mm-hmm.
and like only little training sessions, and then hope that what we've taught in that 5 minutes transfers to life.
Yeah. So yeah.
Yep. And I go, no, once we've taught it, like we take training sessions for sure to improve things or teach new things, but we go to application,
Mm-hmm.
right? So we find places to use this stuff. So the dog thinks like, okay, like sit isn't just this thing that I do during these 5 minutes. Like I might be out on the sidewalk in a sit while things are happening. I might be next to my mom having a conversation while she's having a conversation with her neighbor, and I'm sitting for 5 minutes. We might be at a restaurant for
Mm-hmm.
20 minutes while mom gets her coffee. We're finding places to apply it, and your dog's going to make mistakes,
Mm-hmm.
but that's how we correct them, and then that's how we make things functional. Okay.
Yeah.
How much any of this stuff so far?
No, that all sounds good.
Okay. The policing dog stuff, I'm not too worried about.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sorry, did you say you take them to dog parks at all or no?
We don't take him to dog parks anymore. Because he likes to run really fast. He usually gets a big crowd of dogs around him, and that's how he's gotten attacked a couple times. So we
Well, yeah.
don't take him anymore. Yeah.
Sure. Gotcha. Okay. But like, but then on a leash, you said he might police dogs, like he's watching. Is that correct?
Yeah, if we're like at a friend's house, like we have like one of his friends is another whippet who is like super like overly excited, and they'll play together, and if they're chilling and he sees that the other dog is like hyper and like running around and bouncing and stuff like that, he'll go over and be like, stop that.
Gotcha. Okay. That we can correct.
Mm-hmm.
So Ecollar does 2 things.
Mm-hmm.
It does what I call do that and don't do that. So do that would be obedience, sit, stay down, come place. Don't do that would be behavior. Don't police dogs, don't jump, don't bark.
Mm-hmm.
Don't go running in circles.
Yeah.
That it does both of those things. Okay. So behavior and obedience are different in the sense that behavior is typically the don't stuff and obedience is the do stuff. So once we get the heel portion down and we see how does it affect this behavior, okay? Because it can indirectly address the policing of dogs.
Yeah.
Because it just makes them calmer,
Mm-hmm.
that they're able to tolerate more things. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if it doesn't fix that, it's not a problem. We can use the e-collar to correct them, to tell them like, hey, like, don't worry about what that dog's doing.
Yeah.
Okay. So the e-collar is what I like to call like a bite on a button.
Mm-hmm.
So dogs are physical animals. They bite each other.
Yeah.
And that's how I like to view the e-collar, is that you're nipping and biting your dog at varying strengths to either teach them to do something or teach them not to do something.
Yeah.
Okay. So like if he's policing a dog and we're far enough in the program where I'm like, you can correct them, you would use the collar and you would tap and it would, cause the muscle to contract.
Yeah.
Then deter him from the behavior. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's like, so another dog would come up and correct him for policing the other dog.
Yeah.
Right? So you're doing that, except you're setting the boundaries. So anything you don't want him to do, you can use the collar to stop as well. Okay. Like the foraging stuff, that's also don't do that. Okay. Right. Don't eat stuff off the ground. Mm-hmm. So like a lot of people would teach leave it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't teach leave it. Yeah. So I don't do leave it.
Yeah.
Right. So the way a dog brain works is, let's say we're outside and I know I want Mulder to eat nothing off the ground. Mm-hmm. It's just a flat rule. Don't eat anything off the ground, right? If you say leave it, you have to say leave it every time. Mm-hmm. Okay. And I want Mulder to look at a piece of chicken or a chicken wing or whatever, a cigarette butt, and go, you know what? No, I'm not going to touch that because I don't want to get a consequence. Okay. So what we do is once we've taught everything, if he's off the leash running around and he finds like a chicken bone, you can use the collar to correct him. And then ideally, you would do that proactively. So if I see him zone in on something, I would correct him then.
Yeah.
So then he thinks I can't even look at stuff on the ground without being corrected.
Yeah.
But then he starts to associate that in order to avoid the correction, he just avoids the behavior. Okay. But if you say leave it, technically he can attempt to get the bone until you say leave it.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
Yeah. When he's on leash, he's great at not eating things because I'll pop him with the collar. But once he's off leash or like farther away, like on a long line, he's like, I'll just eat everything.
Yeah. So we can use remote collar to stop all that stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's pretty easy. That's like maybe a class because I'm just essentially teaching you how to correct behaviors with the remote collar. Okay. Yeah. So like I was raised old school. I was spanked. So spanking was both an incentive to do things like getting good grades and doing my homework and doing my chores, because if I didn't, I got spanked.
Yeah.
But it was also an incentive to not do things like, talking back to my mom, not doing the dishes or whatever, but, to stopping me from doing behaviors that my mom did not want me to do. Okay. So same thing for the e-collar. It's a disciplinary tool, but it can be used to teach things and also teach to stop things.
Yeah.
One of the most common questions that I get is like, when does the e-collar go away?
Yeah.
In my book, when you need it, it doesn't. So what that means is every time you're on a walk with Mulder, you have his collar on. If he's going to be off leash, you have your collar on. If he's going to be around some friends' dogs and you don't want him to police them, he'd have his collar on. Okay. But if he's a great dog inside the home, you don't need it.
Yeah.
Okay. So the reason why this is, I guess a way to explain it is, do you drive?
Yeah.
Do you go on the expressway?
Yes.
You go the speed limit?
Yeah. Sometimes.
So most people don't go the speed limit.
Yeah.
Right. But when you see a squad car, what happens?
Slow down.
Right. Because that's threat of consequence. Right.
Yeah.
That's what we call opportunistic behavior. Okay. All animals do it. It's a part of survival instinct.
Yeah.
So for Mulder, he has the collar on. He's going to go, okay, mom has control today. Mom can spank me on or off leash. Right. So he's going to be compliant. But then if you remove the collar, he's like, hey, that collar's out here today. What happens if I don't do what you tell me to do?
Yeah.
Oh, nothing? Okay, so I'm going to press the boundaries then.
Yeah.
Okay. So I like to call the cop on a collar because when it's present, dogs will alter their behavior. It's nothing good or bad. It's nothing that's, it's not because of my skills as a trainer. It's not because of my methods. It's whether or not you're using positive reinforcement or positive punishment. When you remove the motivator, performance dips. Okay, so if you don't have food, his performance is going to dip. But even if you had food, he can still choose to ignore it. Yes. Right? And the consequence is you don't get food, which is not a consequence to a dog. Okay. With the remote collar, same concept. If it's off, his performance is going to dip. But when it's on, if he chooses to not do something, I can make him do it because I have a means of reinforcement.
Yeah.
Okay. So it happens all the time. I know people will comment on like, well, Jesse, I saw like a YouTube video of a dog doing all these things. And I'm like, well, one, that's most likely a dog that belongs to a trainer who's put in thousands of hours of training since that dog was 2 months old. Okay.
Yeah.
Or the environment is bland. They're either in an empty room or they're on an empty street or they're on an empty field of grass and there's nothing going on. Yeah. Right. But that's not realistic to people, especially here in Chicago.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So all that stuff, like my dogs, right, are 8 to 9 years. They've been trained off leash for 8 to 9 years. If I ever let them off leash, you'll see the collar on them. But I touch it once in a blue moon, and it's usually for stuff that I can't control.
Yeah.
Like if someone set off a firework, or if like a squirrel was like super ballsy and just like ran right in front of them.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. Otherwise, my dogs are great. I don't need to use it, but I know that if an emergency happens or if life happens, I still have a means of communication.
Yeah.
Okay. Questions about any of that stuff?
No, but it's good too. Yeah.
How much does Mulder weigh?
He weighs 33 pounds.
33. Okay. And what would you describe his temperament as?
He's pretty chill. When he's like zooming, he's zooming, but then once he's inside the house, he's a couch potato.
Gotcha.
He's a clingy boy.
Okay. Any separation anxiety or no?
Kind of. He had it when he was a puppy. He probably has a little bit of it now that I'm home, but we crate train him, and like we leave him in the crate for like a little bit each day, even if we're here, just so he doesn't get too freaked out. He seems fine when we leave. We have a camera, but I mean, I can tell that he doesn't like when we leave.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else about Mulder?
No, I don't think so. No, I think that's pretty much it.
Okay. So, in terms of the collar that I would recommend, there's two. I'm trying to think. Whippets are the little guys, right?
Yeah, so there's Greyhound, then Whippet, and then Iggy, which is like small. He's like probably like the size of a small Greyhound.
Gotcha.
Yeah, he's big, but he's still pretty small. His max size is like a 12.
Okay. Because at 33 pounds, technically, the collar he would need would be the Dogtra 280C. And Maria would send you this info.
Okay.
It's meant for 35 pounds and under. My only thing about it is that if he's got really good or really high prey drive.
He does. With squirrels, he's a psycho. Like everything out the window.
Okay. When we were dealing with remote collar, I have to account for a number of things. One, size of the dog, the breed, the length of the coat, the fur. Are we dealing with behavioral issues like reactivity or aggression? And I also want to think dog has prey drive, or I want to think in the context of where the dog would be under stress. Okay.
Yeah.
Because all those things can affect how the dog perceives the collar. So breed, size, temperament of dog doesn't really affect their tolerance to the remote collar. Okay. So I could have, like, for instance, 2 Rottweilers, and one can be like 80 to 90 out of 127 of the collar, and the other could be like on 20. Okay. And they could be on the exact same collar, but their tolerance to the collar is very different.
Yeah.
Okay. I've even trained dogs from the same litter, and they have completely different numbers.
Yeah.
Okay? So for Mulder here, my only concern with the Dogtra 280C is that if his prey drive is really good, it's what we would call low output.
Yeah.
So it's a weaker collar. So that you could be maxed out on the collar, and if he's really got high prey drive and he's zoned in, you'll see him like twitching, but he doesn't care.
Yeah.
Because the squirrel or the rabbit or whatever it is he's staring or chasing is overriding the collar.
Yeah.
Okay. It's technically an option, but just keep that in mind.
Okay.
The other collar I would recommend is the Dogtra Black Edition. Okay. Now that collar is the highest output collar. Now the reason why I suggest it is because since he does have a small neck, it's a rounded collar.
Oh, that might be better fitting. Yeah.
Yeah, so that it's not, because the other one in between is a box. Okay?
Yeah.
So for a guy like him, I think the rounded collar would be better.
Yeah.
It's the highest output collar. All that means is we get more from less.
Okay.
Okay. So I could use it on my 8-pound Chihuahua and he'd be perfectly fine.
Okay. Yeah.
So like, for instance, on the low output collar, his number could be 60. On a high output collar, his number could be 20, 25.
Okay.
Okay. So that's the difference. So then this way I go, okay, if he does have really high prey drive, I'm not that worried about, am I going to have enough power to override it?
Yeah.
Because like, let's say you bought the lower powered one, we go and it turns out like he's crazy prey driven. Yeah. And then I go, crap, well, now you got to turn the collar in, order another collar, and like go through all that nonsense. Yeah. Whereas you just get the Black Edition, you don't have to worry about emergencies, you don't have to worry about prey drive or any of that stuff. It's the highest powered collar. It's perfectly safe to use on him. So we can just jump into training and not really worry about anything.
Yeah,
Okay?
we'll do that one probably. Yeah.
Anything else?
No, I think that's pretty much it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So here Maria would get in touch with you.
Okay.
We are pretty backed up. She's doing the best she can.
Yeah.
But it's usually within now it's currently around what, 5 to 7 business days for turnaround time. I believe currently booked out into June.
Yeah.
That all depends on your availability. Daytime is usually easier because most people are 9 to 5.
Yeah.
So if you have daytime availability, maybe easier to get on sooner.
Yeah.
Otherwise, Maria will let you know when. So what will happen is she'll ask you for like your schedule, and she'll cross-reference it with mine, and then see where she can place you and give you some options.
Okay.
And then she kind of just takes it from there. She'll also email you the 2 callers I recommended, and then you can either get them through us or you can get them through Amazon.
Okay.
Okay. And then I believe that's it. And I think you're fine with 6 classes. If you want more, you're more than welcome to do more. But the 6 is, from what you're telling me here, is what I would recommend.
Okay. Yeah.
For your case. Okay.
Sounds good. Yeah.
Anything else?
No, that's good. That's perfect. Thank you.
So then Maria will get in contact with you. If you need anything else, you let us know. Okay. Otherwise, it was a pleasure talking to you. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Take care. Bye-bye.